Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, I know it's been a while since I've been here, but I'm back again. I'm gonna do another kind of quick sketch for today. So I figured what I'll do for today is doing something a little bit simple. I realized I hadn't drawn any Animaniacs characters in a while, so I figured what I'd probably do, because I don't think I've drawn them. I think I have drawn, but I think it's been a while since I've drawn them on the stream. Is I'll do Yakko from Animaniacs. I mean, excuse me, Wakko from Animaniacs. But I figured I'd draw him as a singer. Part of the reason I wanted to kind of draw him as a singer because for those who probably know, his voice actor Jess Harnell, he's also a rock singer as well. I think he has a group called I think it's called Sugar Mountain. What's the name of the group? Let me try to look up real quick. Rock Sugar, that's the name. And that group is kind of one where it's a match of pop music and heavy metal. So they play a lot of like 80s stuff, which is cool. Oh hey Shay, hey, glad you dropped in. It's good to see you too. And with me liking a lot of old school like rock music, especially from the 80s, that's definitely right up my alley. So I figure I'll go and do that. So first, let's start with our pose here. So let me get his little nose while we're at it. Let me get his mouth. So let me get his little hat. I thought about maybe giving him hair like Harnell, because Harnell he's got that like huge like the huge amount of like brown like curly hair. It's definitely 80s style. I thought about giving it to him, but I figure I'll just stick with just his classic look. I might think of doing something for him. I might have him maybe wear a suit that he would normally wear. We have room for his feet. I want to make sure he has enough. It's not too big. I'll make his legs aren't too long. Because I think I've noticed I tended to do a lot whenever I draw ones. I tend to make them look their bodies a little longer than they actually are. I think I'll bring his arm out a bit more. Let me just get his nose. Let me kind of bring his snout out a bit more. Let me come down. That's one thing I try to do whenever I draw. So I make sure I come down if so you can tell they have more of a larger snout. I think if you do it up here, because I used to do it kind of right up here, but it just made their snout seem kind of thin. So I'm just gonna bring it down. the side of his cheeks here, the little tufts of his hair. I'm trying to think. Do I want to give him his regular hat? Or do I want to give him a different type of hat? Because I know Jess Harnell, I know sometimes he wears like little big hats too. Matter of fact, I think I will do just that. I think I will do that. Maybe I'll have it studded out because every night who wear kind of like those diamond studded like hats, and sometimes diamond studded jackets. So, yeah, I think it looks a lot better now. Cause they didn't want it to be just Wakko singing. I wanted to actually have him where he's an actual performer. Because I mentioned before, because I know what they are band Rockstar. I think basically what they do, they tend to kind of do these songs. They're kind of like mashups where they'll take like these '80s songs, like pop them and mix them in with other songs. I know as Don't Stop the Salmon, which that's the one I'm more familiar with. When that one, that's kind of a mix up of Don't Stop Believing by Journey, Enter Sandman by Metallica. That's probably the one I probably know them the best for. But I fear they have like other ones too, because I know they did one with Queen and Molly Crew mixed together. There's another one with Joan Jett and Def Leppard mixed together too. So yeah, it's a huge kind of like. So the band apparently is like a huge kind of like tribute to like those type of like 80s 70s bands. And I don't know if they're still performing because I think as far as I know they are still active. So I wouldn't mind I'm getting a chance to actually like see him with as whether either see him perform or really just get a chance to do him at conventions because I don't know if he still does conventions. I would assume he does. But I definitely would like to meet him one day. I think I'll have the little necklace going down here. They have like his open shirt. His open jacket here. Let me just get this other arm. Let me get his fist. Let's get his legs while we're at it. Because we want to make sure he has room for his tail. I think I'll have him wear maybe a full suit too. Because even though Wakko doesn't normally wear pants, I think in this case I will give him some. Let me get his little webbed feet, his large feet. Now make sure I have enough room for his tail. Oh yeah, that's coming out really nice. Yeah, it really has been a while since I drawn animated, at least aside from pinking the brain. Because in fact, not to make a deep tweet, let me see if I got it on hand so I can show y'all for a brief moment. So this is one of the pictures I did recently. I did with Pinky the Brain. So I did with Brain. I did Pinky. It's actually a redo of an older picture I did years ago for Inktober. But I decided to redo it. One, because I've been meaning to redo it for a while. But also, I'm planning on heading out to the Chattanooga Comic Con later on, like next month. So I think it's gonna be, I think it's September the 21st to the 20 to 20. It's 23rd to 21st to the 23rd. So it's a weekend long convention. And Maurice LaMarche, he's going to be there. For those who know Maurice LaMarche, he also voiced Brain. And so I'm definitely on going to that again because I actually went last year. Last year that's where I got to meet Rob Paulson. I got a chance to meet Bill Farmer, Scott Inez, and who else was the other one? Scott Inez, Bill Farmer, Jeff Bennett. Got a chance to see him too, and it was such a great experience. I really enjoyed going, so I'm definitely planning on going again. And what I'm gonna do is make a copy and see if I can have him autograph it. So that'll be great. Hang on for just one moment. All right, guys, I'm back. Can you guys hear me? Cool. Yeah, I had to go take a brief call real quick. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but I'm back, but I also had to kind of readjust the camera too. I didn't realize you couldn't really see everything, so hopefully you guys should be able to see everything a little bit better now. Okay, fantastic. Great. Alright, so now Let me get his little microphone stand. In fact, let me bring it down just a bit more so it's closer to where his voice is. You know, one thing I'm surprised with Jess on now, as much as he does like sing, I'm surprised he and Rob Paulson haven't really done much together, because I know Rob Paulson, you know, like top of Jess would be great too. Rob Paulson was known for being a great singer too, or maybe they has. I just hadn't really heard about it as of yet. Okay, so I'm really liking how well this is turning out. So I think, let me see, what other kind of details could I add to really kind of make it seem more like Harnell stuff. Let me see. Yeah, because I'm kind of looking at I'm kind of like following some other pictures he has as his reference, because I know of his stuff, he kind of wears a lot of like those old school type of like old school type of shorts where they're often very big. Sometimes they're white, sometimes they're black. Usually Florida. They're definitely from that era where you had all these rock stars kind of wearing either leather or wearing like these big, wearing like these big, like flashy outfits. And his stuff really kind of really captures that era nicely. I think I'll probably have it on a little cufflinks. Yeah, I think that's close to what he normally would wear. Yes, I think this is looking pretty good. So now let's just kind of refine our sketch a bit more. There, get his tongue out more. But what was the other thing I say? But yeah, I'm definitely kind of looking forward to actually going to Comic-Con again this year, because I think of all different cons I've been to. I think I've mentioned on my previous streams that that was probably my favorite of all different like conventions, like Comic-Cons I've been to. Like, one, it was a lot smarter compared to say like MomoCon and DragonCon that we got here in Atlanta. You know, this one, it's much smaller because, you know, Chattanooga, it's much smaller like compared to Atlanta, and they had kind of a smaller convention center. So I feel, you know, being small, you know, like that kind of made things a little more interesting because you can actually kind of talk to different people that you're there. You have more time to spend more time with other folks you meet. And also the whole vibe doesn't feel, you know, as corporate as, say, something like MomoCon or DragonCon, because of course, you know, everything has to be, and everybody's strict rules and regulations. You have to get everybody has to get in and out. So I really do love it, like, for that feature alone. And plus, I just enjoy it mainly since Chattanooga, it's a city I hadn't been to in long. I think when I went last year, that was probably the first time in, say, probably maybe, I think 10, maybe almost 15 years since I had been there. Because I know the last time I went to Chattanooga, I, at least on top of, aside from the Comic-Con from last year, I'd say it was about probably like 14, 15 years ago, because I know, I went there with my family, and I know it was 15 years ago, because one of my cousin's first oldest son, he was like 1 year old at the time, and, you know, he's like 16 years old now. And I vividly remember that one because I know I went, it was me, my mother, my sister, aunt and uncle, like their kids, were really my cousins really, and my grandmother. It was kind of a big deal because, you know, that was kind of first time, you know, while we'd ever did, you know, like a big like family vacation. And looking back and it being pretty significant, because of course, you know, like it was one of the last like really big trips, you know, I did with like, two family members. Of course, you know, one of my cousins went with us. Unfortunately, like, she had passed away, you know, like a few years afterwards. And my grandmother, you know, that was like one of the few times, you know, I had traveled with her. Of course, she passed away, I think, about a few years back. But I remember that was one of the few times I actually traveled with her, because, you know, we didn't like travel. Like, the only time I recall her like really traveling anywhere is I think up to Delaware, where my aunt used to live for a brief period of time. And then when I think we went on vacation, I think aside from maybe just doing Chattanooga, I think we went to one that time we went to Biloxi because it was for our family reunion. Hey, Laura Del 51. Hey, nice to meet you. Nice to see you. Glad you dropped in. Yeah, for those who had dropped in about basically I've been drawing so far as Yakko, as I am a Rockstar, kind of like his voice actor Jess Harnell. So in case you haven't dropped in, like best basically what I've been working on as of right now. So let me kind of break out his feet a little more. I know in a little bit I'm gonna use I'll use like a different pen, to kind of fine tune everything. Yeah, and even when I went back to Chattanooga, I found like it hadn't really changed all that much. I think at most like there's a lot of like newer buildings. Like some places have been remodeled. I know like a big difference I noticed was the aquarium. Like I know the aquarium over there now they got a whole separate edition where they have a section for the penguins. They got this section where they have a little butterfly exhibit. The area where you can pet stingers. So it's actually gotten a lot bigger since the last time like I was there. They had a couple other places I didn't recognize. I know they got this. Now, granted, I don't know if it's always been there or if it's brand new, but they also had I forgot, it was some type of arcade. I forgot what was called, but what's significant apparently it was a pinball museum. That's what it was. So basically, it's a room that feels never like an arcade, but with a lot of like pinball, like old school like pinball games. And it's actually, I think, one of the largest one. I think it's called the Godzilla. I think that's what it was. And I'm telling you, it's pretty massive for a pinball game. Because I've only played them a few times, but I know how even regular ones can be kind of big. But this one it's fairly wide too. So let's get his microphone. Remember they had a really nice they had a really nice like Brazilian steakhouse place I went to. That was really good. That whole place I was dedicated nothing but what's that dessert? Moon pie. Apparently moon pie is really big there. In fact, I remember even when I went to my hotel there, one of the first thing what was I going to mention? Yeah, one of the first things I saw when I checked in was actually right on the desk, it was actually a can full of RC cola, and right next to it was a thing of moon pie. Thank you for the positive view you gave me on my drawings. Happy squirrels, happy birthday, angel expression I chose. Yeah, I actually do like that, like how your Slappy Squirrel picture turned out, and I like how you kind of did closer towards your own style. But you did a fantastic job on her. It looked wonderful. Yeah, alright, I think this is looking pretty good. So I think now what I will do, I'm actually go ahead and actually get our pen here and actually just kind of start drawing everything out. And in fact, let me see if I got a smaller pen I can use. Hang on for just one moment. Okay, perfect, I do. I know also in Chattanooga they also have these little movie theaters. I think they had an old school movie theater that would play off older movies. I know they had a newer one. In fact, funny enough, I think when I was up there, I had considered going to movies while I was up there too, but they didn't really have anything really playing at the time that I wanted to go see. Of course, if I went there right now, like there's definitely a bunch because I know there's quite a few movies I definitely going to go out and see that I hadn't seen yet because I've heard the new Superman movie's good. I definitely want to go see Bad Guys 2. I've heard that movie's pretty fun. I heard it's really good. So I definitely want to go out and see that. I think there's a few others too, which I can't think of at the moment. Yeah, so far I've been hearing there's been quite a good number of good movies that have been out as of lately. I'm definitely like to see Bad Guys 2 because I know when I saw Bad Guys on 1, fun fact, that was actually like that was probably like one of the first, I think not the first movie I saw, after after the pandemic ended. It was one of the first movies I went to go see, like in theaters. And so I remember when I went to go see it, I'm trying to remember, where did I go see it at? I'm trying to remember what, because once I went to go see it at this one theater that's actually about 20 minutes from where I live. It's a very small theater. But I often went there because it's fairly small. The tickets weren't too expensive, but also they weren't too crowded either. Because sometimes if I go on the movie, like sometimes I don't want to deal with too many crowds. That's why a lot of times if I'm going to see a big movie, one that's pretty popular, I usually try to wait maybe like a week or two after it's been out for a while. That way it won't be too crowded. 'Cause of course, you want it's crowded, and you have trouble trying to find a seat. Then you want to make sure at least you're in a seat, where folks are kind of nice to deal with. Let me bring his hat over just a bit more. You get to bring his hat. Real is kind of off center, so I figured I'd bring it in just a bit. A little bit of his jacket. Let me bring that down. Let me get his forearms. Plus, I realized the since I did any kind of like rock related drawings on these live streams, at least on here. That's been a while since I did it. Because the other one I can think off the top of my head that I do remember doing here was probably that one I did of all these different rock stars in a tavern. I think that's the one where I had like Dimebag Darrell, Meatloaf, I had David Buick all together. That one ended up being really fun to do. I might do that again one day. I'm also considering like redoing that one day too, because I like how it turned out. I feel like I could have did a better job on it. Now, granted, I did do it rather quick. I think that one had taken about 2.5 hours to do. Let me get like a little dark star like necklace. Let's get his button shirt. Let's get his other arm while we're at it. Let's get his feet. Yeah, but one is if I get a chance to meet him, Harden, I'll definitely have him autograph this one. Because that's one of my goals in between going to these conventions is definitely to get at least an autograph from at least 4 people from MX Crew. Because I've already gotten one from Tom Ruger, I've already gotten one from Rob Paulson. So not the last 2 on my checklist. I definitely want to get from Harnell. I definitely want to get one from Trez McNeil. Although I heard she doesn't really do like public appearance all that much. But I wouldn't mind getting one from her one of these days. Let's get the microphone stand. There we go. It looks pretty good. Now let's start picking up the outline. I think I have a thicker brush pen I can use for the outlines. Let me see if I got it on me. I should have it. Let me see. Let me see. Stand by. Trying to see, where is it? I know I just saw. I know I have it on me. I'm trying to think, where is it? Ah, here it is. Here it is. Perfect. Exactly what I was looking for. So I'm just gonna use. I was gonna use to kind of color in some of the darker areas. So I'm just gonna color in his mouth, for instance. I'm actually going to color all that in. Let me see some for a moment. Hang on. And mainly I'm just gonna use it kind of like for the outline, for outlines, actually just kind of make the outlines a bit thicker. And the funny thing, when I did that Pinky and the Brain one, that one was a. I think when I did that, when I did do it live, I didn't do it here. I actually did it on TikTok. Cause that's what I've been doing lately. I've been doing a few like new drawings on TikTok as of lately. When I did that there, I did something different where when I drew out the after I sketch anything out, I start with the outside, work my way in. Because that's something I do tend to alternate with, where sometimes I will start on the outside, other times I'll start on the inside. It depends like how I'm really feeling about how I'm really feeling, and also like if I want to make sure I get the silhouettes like down packed first before I get into details down packed. The bottom of his feet here. And also when I'm doing these thick outlines, a lot of times what I do, when I have the outlines like very thick, I try to taper them so once they get first towards the inside, they start thinning out. So I always try to thin them out when I can, when I bring them closer towards the inside. I'm gonna thicken this out because I think I'm gonna use like a thicker marker, a thicker brush for that. So stay tuned. I'll have something special in for that. Let me get his fist. Let me bring down his side of his cheeks here. Bring that down. I know it's kind of like further up than it should be. It's not connected properly. Yeah. Don't worry, I got a marker I can use to kind of like fine tune that a bit more. And I don't really have much I'm gonna be doing for today. I think aside from this, I know one of my plans is that I'm probably spend some time with family because my sister's in town for maybe a couple of days. So, we're probably doing something for her birthday because her birthday's today. So we'll be doing a few things with her. And I don't have to worry about work because I don't have to go to work until I think tomorrow afternoon. So this worked out perfect because even though I started later than usual, I have a little more time to kind of make up for, especially like since I haven't like been here in a while. Because even though I do occasionally stream on TikTok, I normally don't do these as long as I do the ones I do here. Because the ones I do on TikTok, I'm not really as chatty. In fact, I'll be honest, I don't really talk at all the ones on TikTok. Mainly because I'm still trying to get used to, streaming on that platform. But also, as far as like being able to talk and actually really chat, because I prefer doing that here. But yeah, it's the rhinestone. Now, okay, so now that I got that, let me go ahead and kind of color some of our dark areas first. So I should have a Sharpie marker I can use coloring these dark areas. Yeah, here we go. I got it. So I'm just gonna use that to color in these dark areas. I might use some gel pens to kind of go over some of these lines I made for around his eyebrows. But I'll probably do that later on once this dries. But right now I'm just gonna color in these dark areas to make sure I have a nice, even, consistent layer. In fact, these markers, this is something I'm still kind of like getting used to because I haven't really, because paint markers I don't really use that often. But I gotta say, I really like how these things like really lay down because they're opaque too. So that's probably what makes like a big difference. Maybe get the bottom part of his microphone stand. So I think I'm gonna have actual shadow here, so let me just kind of treat the bottom. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Excellent. So, I think let's move our next stop as far as coloring this in. So in fact, where did I do with my pencils? Where are they? Ah, here we go. So I'm trying to see. So I think one thing I will start actually kind of coloring his tongue first. Because the only thing that's why I definitely know for certain that I'm actually I'm gonna go as far as color wise. And usually when I color, I kind of go with the areas I know are gonna be easy right off the bat. And really ones where I don't have to do too much thinking about what colors I want to use. So I'm gonna give that a nice even layer. Trying to think how do I want to do his suit though, because I'm thinking about keeping it white because I know I'm a lot with Jess Harnell's like whenever he performs, sometimes he'll wear white, other times he'll wear black. But I do want to personalize it more to where it's more like something that Yakko would wear. I think I know what I'll do. I think I know exactly what I'll do. Of course, I'll just keep his shirt. I think I'll keep his shirt blue, but everything else will be white. And the accents, those will be red. Because I definitely want it to be more styled to where it's no longer just Jess Arnell singing. It's also Yakko singing, Wakko singing too. Yeah, and I'm actually while I'm actually kind of looking up look up different like songs he's done with Rock Sugar, like these little mashups. Cause I see he's done a lot of stuff where he'll mix up like different old artists and new artists. I'm surprised I don't really see really anything with the Beatles, especially since Frozen remember Wax Man Man, he kind of had that British like Scouse accent. And a lot of people kind of joke that he kind of sounded like Ringo from the Beatles. And I was not surprised they didn't kind of go with the bit where he ended up doing like a Beatles song because I feel like he could pull it off. I think he'd kill doing a Beatles song, especially if he was doing a song like say, especially either one of Ringo's. I could definitely see him doing one of Paul's songs doing really well. Let me just shade the underside of his hat here. One thing I am planning on doing, I am planning on going back there and adding a little extra shading for this later on. Because I think what I am gonna do for this, I think I'm probably gonna see if I to kind of darken this a bit more. So in the meantime, let me just kind of darken, his jacket. At least add the shadows for his jacket. Let me just kind of go over him and kind of go over his mic stand here. Yeah, because trust me, guys, I'm not quite done with this just yet. I've still got a few more stuff I'm planning on doing with this. Yeah, I wasn't gonna finish it up that quick. So I figured let me do these kind of like dark. Let me kind of give a darker shade of red. I think I'll go over just kind of add just a bit more texture too. I almost think at one point when for drawing this, I almost consider maybe giving it something that instead of having a hair that just harder, I thought I was figure giving something that probably who's the guy from Judas Priest? I think it's Rob Halford. Yeah, Rob Halford from Judas Priest. I almost thought of having me wear maybe wear a hat like he wore. You know, since he's bald now, he tends to wear a lot of hats. I thought about me doing that for a moment, but I know since Wakko's known for wearing different hats, I wanted to get something that would probably like suit him. All right, that looks good. I'm trying to think, I had another ballpoint pen that I was using. It was kind of a dark blue one. Let me see, where it is. Here it is. Yeah, there we go. Let me look at the bottom of his feet here. Because I do want to kind of give everything kind of like a bluish tint to it. Now, let me see. I think the shadow kind of come off on the bottom here, so he's kind of lightly kind of since he's kind of tipping the microphone towards him. Let me just do a little bit of cross-hatching biz here. get underneath his little snout here. Yeah, I'm just gonna go a little darker on these shadows here, just to really kind of heighten that contrast. And sometimes, that's how it is, times with shadows, like, you really have to kind of hit them again just to get that extra contrast. One trick I learned that I always did to kind of really see, if I had enough shadow or if my shadows are readable, usually I'll squint my eyes. And if I squint my eyes, if everything kind of blends together, or if I can't really tell what shadows I put down, that's when you have to, I need to go a little harder. So that's why I make sure, whenever I shade, I make sure I have a good, high amount of contrast. Although now I'm looking at it now, it kind of seems more like a rodeo announcer that I don't know, rather than a singer. But yeah, I think it works either way. I think it works either way for him. Let me look at something for a brief moment. What if I can give him one of his bracelets? I wonder if I can. I don't know. So the one thing I will do in the meantime is let me start kind of bringing our background, just to kind of make this white pop out a bit more. A lot of times if you're doing a lot of white, you want to add a little color just to kind of make it stand out a bit more. In fact, I need to sharpen this. There we go. As far as like the big groups, kind of like Jess Harnell's scenes, kind of like Journey, Foreigner. I haven't really, for those who probably know me, I've been to a lot of different concerts, but I haven't really been to many of like the ones really, like, at least not that many like from that era. Cause I think the only one I can think off the top of my head is and a lot of these actually I'm thinking of, these are maybe a lot more older acts that I've seen. Cause I think the most I can top of my head is Sammy Hagar. I saw him actually last year for the Van Halen experience, and that, which was really great. Of course, I'd seen Van Halen themselves about a couple years back, and both of those shows were really special for different reasons. Like, one, the Sam Hager was fun because, of course, it was such a great show, but also, like it had a killer lineup too. Because, of course, that had original bassist Michael Anthony, and Joe Satriani, because that was the first time I got to see him. I've always loved his stuff for a while, and like Jason Bonham, which is John Bonham's son, like guy from Led Zeppelin. But also, it was really kind of magic, like seeing the original group, back, who a couple of years back, because it was a show that was called I think it was called Piedmont Music Fest. I think that's what it was, and they had a lot of artists. But I remember at the time, like since tickets were expensive, I really didn't have a lot of money at the time. I did what a lot of folks did when we went there too. I was kind of the outside, just outside the park, because they had these big jumbo screens where people who were walking by the park could actually see what was going on, and they could hear it too. And what was cool is, like we could just hear everything. Of course, they played all the songs, and it's funny because it's like it was probably it wasn't the best concert experience that I had because like one, it was one of the days I forgot to bring my glasses, so I really couldn't see out that well. And also because since we were so far away, the sound was kind of muffled. But also, like this was the first time when they got like David Lee Roth back. But one thing I say, but as much as I like David Lee Roth on studio albums, he's always been kind of like uneven live. In fact, it was a brief moment where I think during the middle of the show he kind of stopped, kind of rambling, kind of chatted the audience for a little bit, which was cool like from the beginning. But after a while, you kind of wanted to get on to like the next song. And that's one thing, because like even though I'm much of a Roth fan compared to Van Hager, better than like, excuse me, just ran for a moment. And even though I tend to prefer the David Lee Roth era of Alien rather than the Sammy Hagar area, I will say this, like Sammy Hagar, he's always been more consistent, as like a live performer. But with Sammy Hagar, I really like his solo stuff a lot more than I do his stuff with Van Halen. Not to say that I don't like Van Hagar. I know they had some pretty good bangers from that period. Black and Blue, Why Can't This Be Love, Finish What You Started, Pound Cake. Like, those are all like killer songs from that era. It's just that I preferred, the Roth era more, because I think he brought that certain amount of swagger and energy that was really distinct for that group. That I don't know if that Hager could have actually have brought. But it was great seeing them. Because most of the other like groups I've seen, groups I've seen from the 80s, it's never really been more heavy metal. It's mainly been more a lot of like the thrash metal groups, the punk groups. I've seen quite a good bit of those. Because I think as far as classic punk groups, I've seen most of them. Cause I've seen Circle Jerks. I've seen Black Flag. In fact, when I saw Black Flag, I actually saw them at the that music festival I was at last year, where it was Black Flag, TSOL. Who else was there? There's a few others too. Dead Kennedys, Casualties, a few other groups too. And as far as like as far as thrash metal, I've seen I've seen 3 out of 4 of the thrash 4 or 5, because I know I've seen Metallica. No, not Metallica. I've seen Megadeth. I've seen Anthrax and Slayer. In fact, I think when I saw those two, it was at the same show. That was a killer show too. I always considered going to see Metallica because they came into my hometown not too long ago, but the tickets were really expensive, and plus, I really didn't feel like paying expensive because they're not really here that well. Because what I heard is their sounds for their new tour, it hasn't been all that good. Like apparently, because apparently got these big speakers where they sound great if you're down at the pit in front of the group, but if you're up in like the big nosebleeds, where I probably would have been, because I think the cheap seats were like well over $100 up in the nosebleeds. But of course, if you went down to pit, you'd probably maybe like $1,000 something. Just want to be down there in the front. And seeing while I like Metallica, I'm not willing to pay that much. I think the most I've ever paid for a ticket is probably maybe like, I want to say probably like $120 something. I think that was when I seen Sammy Hagar ones. And luckily, at least that one, that was that was like the money well spent, because it was a great show. But also, I had really good seats too. Because the seats were good, and in the show, because the seats weren't good, and the show wasn't good, then it wouldn't be worth the money. But since it was worth the money, that really kind of made it all worth it. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on these lines, and you can see I'm kind of covering up a little bit of these there'd be straight lines I had made early on. Alright, so let me get our gel pen to kind of bedazzle this up a bit. Let me just add some of these little sparkly like rhinestones on his jacket. Alright. Just some extra sparkles. Yeah, a little highlight on his nose. I'm almost tempted. I'll add some of those. I think I'll add some of the special spots here. Just to add a little bit of that glamminess to everything. Because the only other thing is other like heavy metals I recall really seeing aside from maybe Van Halen's at oh yeah, I think it was a lesser known group named called Doro. She was a lady singer that was from the 80s. I can't remember. Actually, I can't remember. Was she from the 80s? Or was she doing stuff that was kind of in that style? In fact, let me see if I can look it up real quick. Hang on. I know I'm kind of all over the place right now, but sometimes I think about stuff and it just comes to me like mid sentence. Oh yeah, she's been singing since the 80s. Yeah, I thought so. And I know when I saw her, that was probably one of the first like heavy metals. But actually one of the first like rock cons I went to like by myself. Let me try something here. Let me try something a little different with this gel pen. Because even though I already did the outlines, I wonder how it looks when I go around the edge. Actually kind of like how that turned out. Okay. Yeah, see, every now and then I always kind of experiment just to see how it looks. Okay. Oh, wow, I actually kind of like how that looks. Huh. Okay. Oh, I think I really like how that looks. I think I might go back over again with one of the... I think I might take another pass with these pens, though. I'm just gonna go around the little white lines I've already established. Alright, I believe that's pretty much it for this one right here. So we got Wakko Warner as a rock singer. As a fact, I think what I'll do, let me add a little darker shadows here. Hey, thanks, Che. I'm glad you like it. Glad you like it. Let me just get the back. Let me get the bottom of his feet here, at the bottom of the shadows. Hey, thanks. So, guys, I appreciate you all for checking it. So, before I go, if you haven't keep up with us lately, here's some of the other stuff I've been doing as of lately. So, here is the Pinky and Brain one that I did like early last week. So I'm planning on make a copy of this and having Jess Arnell like autograph that. Then of course here's another one I did. I think I did this on on TikTok where I basically just kind of redrew a Simpsons episode because right now I'm kind of like watching through season 4 on Disney Plus. I've actually been watching that. And of course, for those of you who saw my TikTok where I actually like redrew Vermeer I'm painting a Girl with the Pearl Earring, but I did this all with Crayola colored pencils. That was really fun to use. But yeah. So guys, I hope you all really enjoy, watching me do this one. So I know it's been a while since I've actually drawn anything here on stream, at least on here on YouTube. And it's been over 2 weeks, but I wanted to make sure I actually did one, like just for you guys. So until then, guys, like hopefully I can try to do it again tomorrow. But hopefully, if not, then I plan to do it on the same time next week. Alright, but until then, guys, hope you all have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. See you next time.